Why does it get harder to lose fat the more you try? Well, this is a very big, deep, complex topic, so I'm going to break it down as simple as I can. Your fat cells, let's say this is your fat cell, you go on a diet because, well, you've stuffed it too full and now it's this big. And your goal is you have too many of these fat cells that are this big and you're trying to shrink them. No problem. So the first couple times that you diet, you gain weight, you lose it, not a big deal. But over time, those fat cells, the larger they become, they will get more reluctant to shrink. Now, why is that? We could talk about hormones, we could talk about genetics, we could talk about all of those things. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to break down the structural reason why it can't shrink. And so what happens is when your fat cells sense trauma, which is shrinking and expanding, it actually begins to build structural tethering to the area around it. This is called an extracellular matrix. Your fat cells aren't just floating around doing whatever they want. They're actually anchored in place, but it looks almost like a web that surrounds it. Think about a spider web and tons of fat cells trapped inside of that spider web. Now, if you've ever seen a spider web, when the fly lands on it, it sends a signal. It physically vibrates the web and it sends a signal to the spider. That's how the spider knows that there's something trapped in the web. Well, if that fly tries to escape, it's physically going to move that webbing. It's going to stretch it. And the same thing happens when you have a fat cell and you try to shrink it. It's going to pull on the webbing around it. But because your body senses that as an injury, your immune cells go in and they actually reconfigure that web to become stronger. So now that your fat cell is trying to shrink, it can't because there's technically too many collagen type 6 fibers in there preventing the fat cell from shrinking, because every time you shrink, it causes structural stress and it elicits an immune system response. This is why it gets harder as time goes on, and this is why people have to resort to lower and lower and lower calories and go more and more and more extreme to lose the fat. But that's not going to correct the issue, because you can deprive yourself as many calories as you want. But if that structural stress of that fat cell is not going to shrink, your body will pull the fat out and then just put it right back in because it needs to maintain that size. So how do you correct this? Well, making sure that you're consuming foods high in glycine, making sure that you're consuming foods high in collagen, and making sure that you're resetting the genetic programming associated with the fat cell. How do you reset the genetic association to your new large, stiff fat cells? You do it in the Alpha Foundation. There is specific timing of specific foods and specific supplements that are designed to break down the collagen type 6 fibers and allow your fat cells to get back down to the regular size. Now, you don't just want to follow a plan that just shrinks your fat cells and then allows them to expand. How do you get them smaller, and then how do you keep them there? How do you keep them healthy? How do you keep them satisfied at this size? This is why eating based on foundation is important. You can't just go on an extreme diet, lose a bunch of weight, and then go back to a regular way of living, because that's how you shrink and expand, and you get stiff fat cells. That's how that happens. So the program that gets you lean should keep you lean. Now, if you like pizza, if you like chips, if you like steak, if you like ice cream, if you like fruit, if you like carbs, if you like keto, all of those things are built into the foundation, because you have to follow something. When you don't know what to do, when my clients in the past, they don't know what to do, they resort back to the Alpha plan, and Lord and behold, their fat loss continues. I have people losing 5 pounds in 5 days. I have people losing 9 pounds in 5 days. And it's because we're correcting the actual issues and complications associated with fat loss. It's not a diet. Diets destroy your fat cells. They make them big and they make them stiff because they don't correct the real issues, guys. Life is too short to be mucking around with whether or not you have abs. Everybody wants to be lean. Everybody wants to look good naked. That requires a plan. Your job requires a plan. Your bills require a plan. Your body requires a plan. Follow one that is proven to work and stop the cycle of yo-yo dieting. Just get your dream body and deal with life. Honestly, it's not that complicated. All right, so I hope you learned something. Make sure you check out the Alpha Plan at thebodymaster.ca, and I promise you it will look after your health just as well as I will.